Good afternoon. Today we will conclude my part of the course with another guest lecture. The speaker today is Lucio Gobbi, that is at University of Trento, an assistant professor at University of Trento. And Lucio in a sense, will continue the discourse that Luca Fantacci began last week. Indeed, Lucio and Luca are co-authors, and Lucio will present the second part of the research that they published in a recent book with the title "The Future of the International Monetary System, Geopolitics and Technology." Let me just introduce the lecture by underlining the relevance of this research for two main reasons. The first reason is related with our theoretical analysis of the financial markets as a place in which we need to a very challenging approach for interpreting what happens in financial markets. Indeed, especially today, we cannot understand the changes in the main variables on financial markets just considering the perfect functioning of the neoclassical approach of financial markets. The idea that the full efficiency hypothesis works, it in a sense very impressive. And second reason of related to the paper and to the course is the fact that on technological front, the proliferation of new kind of financial instruments, particularly cryptocurrencies and central bank digital currencies, seems to have ambivalent effects, allowing other forms of money to gain international traction, but also offering the dollar itself the opportunity to take advantage of the possibility of circulating in new digital guises. So the questions about the future of the international monetary system and moreover the future of the dollar as a dominant currency on monetary markets and financial markets too appears as a space of analysis and of attempts to forecast our future. Fantacci and Gobbi, in the paper that we will discuss today, presented the prospects of the international monetary systems, and they start their analysis of the current state of international monetary system by assessing the strengths and the weakness of the dollar in its various roles, and by reviewing the common contention pro and versus about the resilience of US dollar hegemony that is in a sense the background of our main questions, both on theoretical level and on empirical level. So I leave the floor to Lucio, and I am very happy to have here today for this lecture.
Thank you very much, Stefano. Can you hear me? Just okay, fine. Well, my analysis with Professor Fantacci shows that the dollar is still an hegemonic currency, and I think that Stefano and Luca has talked about this kind of stuff in the last class, and you probably have seen also that there are some crumbling in the dollar system, specifically in for what concern the central bank officially reserves. In all other metrics, the dollar is the currency which is by far the most used and the most important in the financial system. Now, today, we talk about the BRICS country, so another group of countries that do not belong to the G7 countries, and furthermore, we will see how cryptocurrency and central bank digital currency is important in a new environment, in a new multipolar environment. So we can say that until the financial crisis of 2007, the hegemonic system, the economic system seemed to be dominated by a single major economics and financial power. This is the United States of America and its allies. And we can also see that the financial system dominated and produced by Americans and its allies dominates the last 15 years and until not the last 15 years, sorry, but the 15 years that follow the demise of the Soviet Union, and therefore from the 1990 to the financial crisis of 2007. And the financial crisis of 2007 has been a turning point in the relationship, economic, financial, and political relationship between the US and the other part of the world. And we can say that even if the Western countries produce the biggest crisis in capitalism, and nevertheless, the G7 countries did not admit that after the failure of the model, it would have been useful to change altogether and to implement a serious global reform. Now, in this environment came up the first BRIC declaration. There are three important points that I read and comment with you, and then we will see some metrics that represent the strengths and the weaknesses of the BRICS countries, and then we will develop our analysis in cryptocurrencies and sanction, and so this kind of stuff. First of all, for what concern the BRICS declaration, the first declaration is very important, and in 2010 they wrote that we have agreed upon steps to promote dialogue and cooperation among our countries in an incremental, proactive, pragmatic, open, and transparent way. The dialogue and cooperation of the BRICS countries is inductive not only to serving interest of emerging markets, economies, and developing economies, but also, and this is important, but also to building a harmonious world of lasting peace and common prosperity. This is an important. This is the first article, and in the first set of article is Article 15, and it is important because it marks the differences between the approach of the West and the approach of the BRIC countries to developing a new financial system. But specifically in the monetary, for what concerns the monetary institution, they wrote that we will strive, so they strive to achieve an ambitious conclusion to ongoing and long overdue reforms of the Bretton Woods institution. I think, Stefano, that you have presented the Bretton Woods system and this kind. Okay, so the BRICS country told us that they strived to reform the Bretton Woods institution and to participate in the reform. But the IMF and the World Bank urgently need to address their legitimacy deficit. Reforming this institution governance structures requires first and foremost a substantial shift in the voting power in favor of emerging market economies and developing countries to bring their participation in decision making in line with their relative weight in the world. And it's important, their relative weight in the world economy. They want to participate in the reform of the financial system because they have a power, they have a share of the product of the production in the world economy. So therefore, for them, it's important because they want to decide in the democratic way and to participate in the decision of the world. The world financial system and the economy in general. Third point, in the interest of promoting international economic stability, we have asked to our finance minister and central bank governors to look into regional monetary agreements and discuss modalities of cooperation between our countries in this area. Therefore, the BRICS country, they want to start to organize by themselves. And in order to facilitate trade and investment, we will study feasibilities of monetary cooperation, including local currency trade settlement agreement between our countries. And this is another important point. And for example, in the Development Bank declaration of this year, 2023, the BRICS country said often that they are organized by themselves because the G7 countries are doing nothing for enhance this kind of cooperation in order to have a better and more efficient governance of the global economy and financial system. So this is the BRICS vision of the financial system, the monetary and financial system in 2010, but also today. Now, just some points to introduce our lecture. So the recent BRICS Annual Leader Summit, this one in Johannesburg in 2023, the Annual Leader Summit in Johannesburg scaled up that news with rumors surrounding the creation of a new currency for member countries. So you have talked about the international monetary system that that the fact you have introduced the fact that the dollar is still the most important, the predominant currency, but there are some rumors that talk about the fact that the BRICS countries are talking about create their own currency. So those rumors were not entirely surprising, and in the most I have a return problem.
No, and no problems, Lucio.
Okay.
I would like just add a little note to stress to my class some aspects of your discourse. The fact is that if you read this analysis, that is obviously an international political economy analysis. It is not immediately a monetary economics approach. It is, first of all, an international political economy analysis. But what is interesting is the fact that in order to understand what are today the main variables that may induce the main movements, not only in the exchange rates between currencies, but moreover the main financial assets, we have to consider this kind of rumors, this specific kind of rumors that are in a sense rumors that are related with the institutional weakness of the international monetary system. So the uncertainty about the international monetary systems is also one of the main variables that may disturb the changes of the main financial assets. And it could be a very challenging way to study the forecasting procedure about the financial markets. And it is also, in a sense, the main reason because this course has been named Financial Economics and International Institutions. Okay, thank you, Lucio.
Yes, I completely agree with you. Going on, we can say that in the month before the summit, the 2003 summit, Russia had already discussed the prospect of a new currency, a new BRICS currency, that as a way to emphasize its flourishing alliance with other significant emerging markets. So this discussion could be interpreted in the political way or in economic way. And for what concerns myself, I do not believe, and we will see why, that there could be a BRICS currency. But this possibility has an importance in the political scenario. But going on, economic sanction against Russia accelerated discussion about the feasible ways to minimize their negative impact by reducing their reliance on the use of the dollar in the international payment. And this is the point. The fact that in the data that you have seen with Professor Fantazzi, there in some metrics, we can see a decrease in the power of the dollar, not in advantage of one single country, but this is a sort of division of the share of the dollar and it is split by many other agents. If you think to the payment, the international payment used by SWIFT in 2022, the value of the payment in the SWIFT was of the renminbi was the 2%, and in 2023, the last survey tells that the 3.6% of the payments are done in yuan, but there are a lot of other currencies, the South African currencies, the Brazilian reals, that are increasing, not in the strong way, but they are increasing their share. So it's not only one actor that take advantage from the dollar decrease in the exchange reserves or in the payments, international payment, but the world are taking as a whole a share of the financial system. So, is it clear, Stefano?
Yes, it is clear for my class.
So, although the prospect of a common currency were quickly dismissed, so the prospect of a common currency, the BRIC currency, is dismissed as an unlikely decision, many recent developments regarding settlement currency in the international trade point to a de facto common trends toward a slow but steady de-dollarization of the trade transaction. So this is the point. Not a new currency, but an increase in the use of all the other currencies in the world. And
so do you think that this increase could be considered as an important increase?
Yes, the marginal increase of each currency is not big, but as a whole, in 20 years, for what concerns the reserve asset, dollar decreased from 70% to 58%, and so 12 points.
So do you think that this can represent the real motive to explain the turbulence, at least at political on the political plan?
Yes, I think that the vagaries that we are experiencing today come from this dynamic. Then, therefore, it is worth noting that well over half of a growing China-Russia trade is settled in renminbi. Furthermore, Russian President Vladimir Putin recently expressed support for using the Chinese yuan intra-trade settlement between Russia, Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So the increase of the using of non-United States currencies. So this would help Russia rebuild a network of trading partners outside the Western countries that resort to economic and financial sanctions. Another shot from the BRICS countries and the BRICS talking of this period, China has been Brazil's largest trading partner since 2009 and reached a record of 50 15,000 billion in trade bilateral last year. So it was not surprising for the fact that these two countries starting to use their respective currencies to settle their bilateral trade transactions. So not only Russia is taking an advantage in use the Chinese currency, but also Chinese currency has an advantage because it could exploit this fact as a political and economic power. But also, for example, China and Brazil are using more than in the past the yuan currency respect to the dollar.
We have a question by Filippo Andrini. Please, Filippo.
Yes, thank you. So I just would like to, to stress a point that you, I guess, a point that you talk in this talk. What we would like to say is that, yeah, for sure, the United States dollar is losing, let's say, power in the last 20 years. And yeah, for sure, I agree with you. And, data don't lie. But on the other side, what I observe, at least as an observer, is that not the other currencies are increasing, in a strong sense, just renminbi, so just the China currency. And another point is that BRICS countries are not, let's say, famous because of their, let's say, democracy or at least the independence of the national bank. So this means that probably, in my opinion at least, what we will see is that, we are going to adjust other single currency. So against dollar, that is the China's one. No one cares about what will happen in South Africa or Brazil. But on the other side, are you sure that other countries are ready, to accept to lose the power on their national banks that they are used to have because they are not properly independent in order to accept that renminbi, so another, let's say, somehow fake currency that is built in some banks, central banks in China because of the Communist Party, can be accepted to be the key object in the economy in, I don't know, in Brazil or in South Africa or even in Russia. We are talking about Mr. Vladimir Putin. I think that what you said about Putin was said just after the war. It means that no one want to, trade with him. No one can trade with him. So they have to accept renminbi is the only way to sell their oil if they want to hit something. I mean, this point, I think that is interesting to also consider. Are you sure that everyone of that country are ready, to overcome their currency and the power that they have on the, central bank to leave that power to Xi? Thank you.
Thank you, Filippo. Yes, Lucio, please.
Thank you. Obviously, I agree with you. We are seeing a slight crumbling of the role of the dollar, but we don't have any real competitor for now. We are seeing a lot of other players that want to take advantage, but no other player are ready or want to take the place of the dollar for now. But they are all united.
Sorry, Lucio. I just want to only stress one of the consideration that Filippo did. He, in my vision, in a right way, underlines the fact that the risk for other countries, just to go rapid, the BRICS, is that they are not ready to rediscuss the role of the independence of their specific central banks. Okay, so can you give us a comment about this point? Indeed, Filippo is in a sense implicitly sustaining that the fact that other countries have to choose a sort of alter currency versus the dollar, it is also a road towards the loss of independency of each specific central banks.
Well, I could agree with you in the sense that if you have the international currency, you have to bear the burden of this role. But if you want only to decrease the role of decrease the weight of the dollar, it is not important of how your institution, the strength and the strength of your institution for now. But in the future, we have to talk only if our paradigm of the independence of central bank is right or not. First of all, is it a good thing to have an independent central bank? In Europe, we have seen that the independence of central bank is violated because of necessity. Otherwise, the euro would have a break. And therefore, what does it mean, an independent central bank? We should have a discussion about this item. For sure, if we take the mainstream idea of the independence of the central bank, and this idea shaped all our reasoning in the last 30 years, I agree with you. They are not ready. They are not ready to be accountable for this kind of critique. And instead, they don't want to take the hegemony, but they wanted to reduce the role of the dollar because for example, for Russia, it is a necessity. For other economy, they don't think how they have to pay a sort of bill to the United States for their transaction. And therefore, it is a different challenge respect to think that a new BRICS, a new world currency challenge. This is a different point, and we have seen that Russia claim of a new currency, but the real talk are of the increasing the role of a specific currency in their region.
I agree with
the point. Okay, and Filippo.
Yeah, sorry, I agree with you, and and I stopped myself just now. But what I'm saying is that they don't want to pay bills to United States, economy, and let's say I can agree and understand it, but they are just paying bill to see that is paying their debt. So it's exactly the same thing.
That you told me the relationship between the debt.
Yeah, I mean, we have that she is buying a lot of billions of public debt in all that countries and is helping, for instance, let's talk about South Africa, is helping, the power of South Africa in their continent buying countries. So
Yes.
I mean, what I say is that, okay, they just choose who will be their owner. This is not trade or free market. No, this is just they are moving from an owner to another probably. And I think, I'm not sure that Xi is the best among the two, between the two, sorry.
Oh, I'm not sure. I'm not sure too. And well, it is an interesting consideration. Well, we can come back to this consideration at the end of the lecture, because we will see some issues that could help us to solve this point. But this is a very good point. This is a very good point that you addressed to me. Stefano?
No, please continue your discourse.
Okay. Now, just some look on the data of BRICS. Here we have a table with the G7 countries and the BRIC plus countries, and for what concern the share in global GDP. You can see that China has the 80%, the India 4%, and if you sum up all the share of each economy, is about 29%, 30% for the BRICS countries, while looking at the G7 countries, this share is about 43%. And for what concern the GDP, we can say that probably the complaints of BRICS countries have some reasons, and here you have also the growth of real GDP at the purchasing power. Here you have also an explanation of what the purchasing power parity is, but I'm sure that Stefano has already explained you. And there are two subsets: the NATO set, in which we have US, the G7 countries, and on the other hand we have the BRICS, the five BRICS countries. And of course, if you have studied this very simple model like the Solo model, you can see that the developing countries have the rate of growth higher than the other, and the time series is the 30-year time series, 32 years, and it is an astonishing data respect to what concerns China and India. And the fact is that at least for India, this dynamic is not stopped, while we have a sign of decreasing of the growth of China. But the convergent process is very fast. It's very fast according to the data. Now, for what concern the population, and population is another very important variable, because the increase in population is the increase in the demand. All the growth model as the variable that represents the increase in population in order to see the dynamics of an economic system. And for what concern India and China, actually they represent almost 18% of the global population. The total BRICS share is about 46%, almost the half of the global population. So it is very important to look at this dynamic, and China and India are the very engine of this dynamic of increase in the population. And then we will see also, for what concerns India, in the increase of population. Russia is not, for this sense, a global player, and for what concerns the population, it has 1.8%, even if Russia it's the widest country for what concerns the territory in the world. And for them, it is a real problem, especially in time of war that in which they have a lot of casualty. And here they have the population growth, and we can see how continental G7 countries has a rate of decrease in their population, and only the Anglo-Saxon countries are able to maintain the speed of the Asian countries in the rate of growth of population. United Kingdom has 0.50, United States 0.70, and Canada 0.73. For what concerns Europe, you can see why Italy is a decreasing dynamic, also Germany, and by far more the Japan. And for what concerns China has a lower rate of increase in population because of their policies at the end of the 80s. For what concerns India and South Africa, the rate of growth of population is very strong. Russia, as we said, due to the war, are facing a decreasing dynamic. Now, considering the military expenditure, and it is a very important dimension if we want to maintain a role in the international system, the United States is by far the countries that spend more, about 30% of the share of the military expenditures. The Professor Lucarelli has wrote a book that analyzes also this kind of variable. And but it is interesting to think that and to look at the fact that all the other, the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth country for the percentage of military expenditure are BRICS countries. And China, which is the first rival of the United States, spends about 30% of the world military expenditures. The last chart for what concerns spot variable, an important variable to analyze economic area is the oil, but oil is only stand for commodities in general, and commodities are the engine of our economies. And in this geopolitical context, we can see that some countries, like the European countries, which or better, the Southern European countries, which has not a lot of commodity disposal, at free, which can appropriate freely, and it is could be a problem. While for what concerns the BRICS countries, you can see that Saudi Arabia and Russia together has about 25% of the share of the oil. Therefore, considering the BRICS together, about 43% of the global production of oil. So, if is a big if, we are doing a confrontation challenge to the BRICS countries, we have to look careful this kind of variable. I don't think that it is a confrontation, a fair confrontation, in the sense that all the BRIC countries has their own policy. Russia has its own policy, China has another policy. So I think sometimes could be stupid to represent the challenge between two blocks. But we have to think, looking at, for example, of the game theory, that there are some players that are the incentive to play this kind of strategy, and so to counter a sort of opposition between these two blocks. Until now, in some metrics, it is rational for them to use this strategy. Now, coming back to the international monetary system, and we have seen with Professor Pantazzi that the amount of reserve by a country is a very, very important variable, because it represents the safety, how much is the country safe, respect to the possibility of speculative attack of their currency. And you can observe that China hold the wider amounts of reserves, which is more than the double that the Japanese reserve. United States is in the 5th place, but it does not have a big need of reserves, given they are the reserve currencies, and other countries like Russian Federation has a very lower quota, and it's for what concerns the reserve, we have to introduce the fact that reserves sometimes, as we have seen, whenever a country is hit by sanction, could be not disposable, like in the case of Russia. But another issue is not only reserve, the value of the reserve, but how the composition of reserve, and you can split it by countries. But here you can see another component of reserves, which is the gold percentage of reserve. Well, it is interesting to note that China has almost nothing reserve in gold, for two reasons. First of all, because the gold is the scarce resource, and therefore all the disposable gold in the world has been already allocated, but only because they have decided to allocate all their reserve in asset, in financial asset, and even if their official report says that they don't have a dollar, but they don't have a wide percentage of dollar, but we know that a lot of banks in China and in the financial banking system of China, there are stocked a lot of gold. Not only in the official reserve, we cannot analyze this variable because they are not disclosed. But in the Chinese financial system, there is a high percentage of dollars, and this is a very important. We have countries that want to challenge the dollar supremacy in the financial system, and this is a country which has their reserves mainly in dollars. And this is the first time in the history. If you think about the gold standard, the gold standard, the Great Britain held their reserve in gold, but also in the dollar standard, in the dollar exchange standard, the vast majority of the reserves were held in the United States that are in gold. So differences between the past. We now have a big country with a lot of reserves, but they are not in gold. And this is a new issue for when we analyze the international monetary system. And while we can say also that in the last since the COVID crisis on, the gold price is increased, and it has increased a lot. If you look at the chart, we have an increase of about 50% in the price of gold. Because even if China is not stocking gold, but there are a lot of other countries that are doing this. like, for example, Russia, but also Turkey and Venezuela, a lot of other countries is stocking gold because of the uncertainty in the international monetary system after the sanction that hit the Russian financial system. Here you have the example of what I'm talking about. Here you have the reserve composition of the Russian central bank before the sanction. Here we have a question.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I agree with you. These are very interesting data, but I think at the same time, you know, Turkey and other countries that are stocking gold, not just because sanction to Russia, but also to face the very huge, you know, inflation that they're facing their country, and because at the same time, you know, their national banks is very linked to politics. This means that probably one of the only way to, you know, stop a bit of, you know, the markets is to buy gold or dollar if you have money to do that, and is probably the only way that they have to face inflation. So
yes, for sure. One,
you know, the Turkey example is
for
crazy.
Russia, it was a necessity. But for example, for Turkey, they are diversifying their reserves for political and economic reasons. And now they have a lot of inflation. But if you want to cover by inflation and you tend to stock liquid asset and not gold. So for me, I don't agree totally with your point. We don't observe an increase in asset denominated in, for example,
Yeah, I got your point, and I understand your point. But if you're talking about, for instance, what is happening in Turkey, until, you know, I'm not so updated in the last you know, month, but in the last months, instead we are observing that the way to face you know, the economic crisis and inflation is still to decrease interest rates. So they try to manage.
Yes, you're correct.
So this is not probably, you know, the way that the other economies are doing. You know, what we observe by Fed and by European Central Bank. So probably to buy gold is a way to show to the markets that we are increasing our reserves. This is my point. Sorry.
Yeah, it could be. Here we are talking about expectation and signal to the market. It could be your point. It could be right. Stefano?
No, I'm just hearing your discussion. So when you decide to stop this very interesting confrontation between us, you may continue. I don't want to intervene.
No, I'm very happy.
I'm very happy that what is emerging is this kind of discussion, that it could be very formative for my students.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to your students. My students tend to be very silent to my lecture.
Filippo was many years ago a student. Now he is an analyst in an important bank. So he is not so representative.
Thank you very much. Now we can see the composition of currency in the Russian central bank before the sanction. Well, since 2014, Russian central bank started to diversify their reserves, but before sanctions, it was the composition. The very problem happens when the four Russia, obviously. For Russia, the problem happens when given that a lot of this reserve were located in countries outside Russia, Russia wasn't able to call this kind of reserve back, and this is important for our discussion because in this way the United States and the allies as undermining the concept of reserve, because in this way, think a country that want to accumulate reserve for any region, but if they have a confrontation, which kind of confrontation with the Western Bloc, they could face the possibility that all their reserve are frozen. In particular, the reserve obviously denominated in US or in European countries' currency. Now, just a couple of facts, and before moving to the cryptocurrency discussion, well, we can say that one of the implications of the greater economic proximity between Russia and China has been the replacement of the US dollar in their intertrade transaction, as we have already talked about that, and China and Russia are settling that. Just some facts. China and Russia are settling their trade by using their own currency, and Russia are obliged to do that, but China not. And for instance, if we look to the Saudi Arabia in 2022, has decided to accept payment for its export to China. And well, it is a very important fact because until now, all the oil contracts were denominated in dollars. But since 2002, there are a small part of the commodity market, but which are began to be traded in yuan. So other countries, are using the ruble to import Russian products, and countries like Turkey are using the ruble and they trade with Russia. Furthermore, one strong indicator, and this is important for me, this indicator, because it represents what is moving, even if does not seem in a lot of metrics that we have seen for what concerns the strength of the dollar, but it is indicative that the 80% in 2019, the 80% of all currency trade were related to dollar, and now last year in 2022, this share had been reduced to 58%, and therefore, for me, it's a very striking point. The world are organizing as far as the possibility to trade in and use also other countries. Sometimes not for political reason, but for the fact that there is a possibility to pay in another way, and they have some benefits to do it. Well, obviously, and I can recall the game theory, we all tend to drive on the right because otherwise we will have accidents. While, for example, if we go to the Great Britain, we start to use another system, and therefore I think that it is the same in trades and in financial market. Sometimes we have the shift from a currency to another. Maybe there was an urgent behavior that push all the other actors to follow this dynamic. And so I think that it would not be a linear process, that the one in which we could see that renminbi or another currency could overcome the United States, but it will be a non-linear process. Then, and probably we already know, for what concern, probably Luca talked about the fact that the international platform for payment are dominated usually by the United States. Most famous, which is the Belgian system, which is the SWIFT.
Yes, on this point you can go fast because.
Okay. No, well, if you have already seen just the conclusion of this part, so we can, from this discussion and a lot of things that Luca probably have said, we have to observe the reduced reliance on on the dollar as a reserve currency, the development of alternative payment systems like CHIPS, INSTEC, and SPFS, the Russian SPFS. So there is a huge increase in the bilateral agreement in local currency. Furthermore, there is a redenomination of commodity prices, and one of the case of the Saudi Arabia contract with the Chinese government is very important. And for what concern, and we will talk about this issue, and for what concern the central bank digital currency, it is important to have more an insight on this concept. Our governance of our central bank, so Mr. Panetta, Professor Panetta says that the international role of the euro could be undermined, especially if the other large economies, like, for example, the Chinese economy, introduce central bank digital currency that can be used across the border. If
sorry, Luca. What I need is a more clarified definition about the central bank digital currency for my class, obviously. And second point, I would like you come on is the nexus between the sanctions and the introduction, or better, the attempt to introduce central bank digital currencies.
Well, for what concerns the central bank digital currency, we'll discuss in a while with what is the central bank digital currency and how it could be an important tool in the cryptocurrency world, but in general in the international monetary system. It was only an hint, given that we talk about sanction, and this is your point. Why when we talk about sanction, it could be important to talk about crypto asset. Well, crypto asset or CBDC or stablecoin could be used to break sanction, so to avoid sanction, and therefore there are currencies that are not specific for not CBDC, but all the other cryptocurrencies are not national currency and could be used as a bridge to avoid sanction. Together with Luca, some study about the role of Bitcoin and central bank and stable coins to try to overcome sanctions from Russia, but our result was they were not effective. Then, introducing in order to talk about CBDC, I have to spend a few words about cryptocurrency. So the eminent cryptocurrency, the most popular and famous cryptocurrency, and is the Bitcoin. The Bitcoin was launched in 2009 as a response to the financial crisis of 2007. A lot of actors, agents tells that the financial system is no more reliable, wasn't reliable after the so huge financial crisis, and therefore they Satoshi Nakamoto issue this new kind of experiment. You can say that Bitcoin is the first cryptocurrency known on a large scale and still a benchmark for the entire sector. So it was launched in 2008-2009 with the aim of creating a peer-to-peer anonymous payment system without, and it's important, without the need for a trusted third party. So this is a big challenge. We have seen the challenge of the brick, but the challenge of Bitcoin was even bigger, which is the idea to revolutionize, to try to change completely the relationship in the financial system. And we know today that Nakamoto failed. We don't know how the BRICS challenge will end. But Nakamoto failed for a couple of reasons that we try to see together. But the challenge was this one. Is it possible to overcome the traditional financial system?
Okay. Bitcoin, I intervene just to help you to summarize this passage. In this way, you may go towards the final step of your lecture, because at 10 to 4 we have to end the lecture. So as I explained during my part of the course, and especially in the lectures devoted to the Bitcoin, at the end of the history we see after a big period, a long period of under-evaluation of the consequences of the diffusion of cryptocurrencies, the entering in the floor of the central banks that in various countries proposed more or less at the beginning of 2019, Lucio, correct me if I'm wrong. The first discussion about the introduction of central bank digital currency was at the beginning of 2019.
No. Before, due to the project launched by the Chinese digital currency. Anyway, it's not important the date, but it's important.
Anyway, in the last 5 years, more or less, and it is really relevant that the first country that reasoned about the introduction of central bank digital currency has been China. That is also the country that's banned for first the diffusion of Bitcoin inside their boundaries and its boundaries. And what is relevant in the lecture that I did, but also in some research that I'm going through together with Lucio too, is the fact that our hypothesis, one of our hypotheses, the fact that central bank digital currency may be also the right tool in order to do monetary policy on crypto assets and cryptocurrencies. And during this lecture, during the discourse done by Lucio today, we also had another brick in order to understand the phenomenon that is very relevant also in forecasting the future of the international monetary system and also the future of financial economics as a core of the analysis for understanding the financial movements and also the necessary regulation in order to sorry for the repeat to regulate financial markets. What is relevant is this new brick that Lucio had added to the lecture, the fact that the introduction of central and the diffusion of central bank digital currencies is not only a consequence of, if you want, the success of cryptocurrencies and especially of the technologies, okay, that are necessary in order to produce and to diffuse and to mine cryptocurrencies. That is the blockchain. But it's also a consequence of the increasing sanctions introduced, moreover, by the United States and their alliance towards Russia and towards the countries that, in a sense, are not allied with, and that do not share the vision about the international trade and international finance that United States and in general the Western democracies consider as legitimate. So I think that my summing up could be satisfactory for you, and so I leave you again the floor.
Thank you, thank you very much for summing up all the issue. And for what concerns Bitcoin, the most popular, but that's a big problem because there's high volatility in their value, and therefore it wasn't a good currency for any metrics: reserve of value, means of payment, and means of payment and unit of value. So it's a bad currency for all the aim of the monetary aims. For I consider the stable coins were the response. Here we have. Oh, sorry. Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we see the screen. Anyway, okay. Yes, the stable coins
had a big problem that they didn't work because you can detect a lot of failure in the stable coins. The aim of the stable coins was the one to create a crypto asset that maintains a stable value. Respect to other important currencies.
Yes, can be considered as a second generation cryptocurrency that are aimed to check and to control and to limit the volatility of the value.
Yes, it's important for me to this quote that from the Terra founder, which is one of the stable coins, who take to talk about the market and also because of the importance of failures in this kind of currency, but just read in one of his public declaration. Terra project co-founder Du Won stated that 95% of companies entering into the crypto market were going to die. Indeed, he further affirmed that there was entertainment in watching the company dies. Before its crash, the Tether, US coin, Binance were the most important currency, like the Terra currency. But in a while, the Terra currency failed. It couldn't meet the value of the promised value to the investor. So the problem with the stable coins, so currency that have the aim to stabilize the value, and was that we have a lot of failure of this kind of currency, and even the most important one, the Tether, has lost the peg with the dollar in two cases. For now, in order to conclude with central bank digital currency, what is central bank digital currency is a debt issued by the central bank. We can see that the central bank digital currency can be viewed as a digital cash capable of replacing physical cash, or at least flank it as a complementary tool to it. So this is an important one of the aim of the CBDC. So a digital cash. The second case, the second one, a CBDC reduce transaction cost. Could be a tool to bring more efficiency in the financial system. Third, for what concerns CBDC, third, many people currently do not have a bank deposit to access the financial system. So it could bring a democratization in the financial system. Therefore, this process of democratization of finance is, in the sense of greater financial inclusion, could be a necessary condition for the implementation of unconventional monetary policy, such as helicopter money. Therefore, it could help to give to the central banker a new tools for monetary policy. Furthermore, another important point: a central bank digital currency can make it possible to track payments, facilitating in this way the containment of tax evasion. And is a point particularly important for Italy. And finally, the extant literature is mainly composed of theoretical contribution, since CBDCs have not been implemented at the most in the most advanced economies, and notably exception is China, which is recently introduced a digital one. Mi suona la porta, vado un secondo. Okay.
Yes.
There is introduce a project, a one digital one project, and it is particularly important for the discussion we've made until now. And therefore, a digital one as a means to expand the Chinese currency within the world as both as a tool of Chinese hegemony objectives, or as a simple tool to let the payment with China more efficient, given that the Chinese economy is the second one in the world.
Okay, Lucio, can you add just a little conclusion in 2 minutes?
Sorry?
Can you conclude with a couple of sentences? We have 2 minutes.
Okay. Now, for what concerns the issues of this lecture are the BRICS challenge and the wishes to replace or at least decreases or to decrease the importance of dollar in the financial system, and on the other hand, if cryptocurrencies could be an alternative tool. For what concerns the first, there are rising up a lot of agreement between countries that do not use the dollar, and therefore, if the strategy of the BRICS is to decrease the dollar power, it could be a strategy. Like the same, for example, the new development bank could be an important tool to this aim. For what concerns the bank digital currency, I'm sure that there will be an important tool in the future, but not only in the confrontation between China or other countries, but because it could be an improvement in efficiency of any kind of central bank policy, and furthermore, the adoption by the country of CBDC be a way to strengthen the BRICS community. And my advice to the BRICS countries is to avoid military conflicts because they would disrupt the possibility of building a new kind of governance.
Okay, thank you very much. Have you any questions? Okay, can you come here just for, you have to come here because he cannot hear. Just very brief, please, because I have to go.
Thank you so much, Professor. My question is just one on these BRICS countries that have just come up. When we look at the Bretton Woods agreements, where we currently use one currency. Now, my question is, having this BRICS country, what do you think may be the impacts on the international trade? Because they are introducing new currency. And then what will now happen to the political, the other question is there not going to be conflict of interest with the international agreements and the introductions of their currency? Thank you.
Yes, there would be some conflict, and like always, the bargaining power stands to the strengthened part. I'm sure that even in the BRICS in the BRICS contest, if China is stronger than a stronger bargaining power, respect back to Brazil, for example, and we are seeing that possible contracts for Brazil and China will be started in one. And the first question, Stefano, could you return?
Can you correct me if I'm not precise? The first question was related to the BRICS, yes, and to the fact what may be the consequences of the introduction of a new currency when BRICS will be able to do this.
Well, according to me,
at the international level, yes, and on international trade, especially on the international trade. Okay, can you?
Well, and actually, we don't have any kind of draft of how this currency would function. So for me, it's a sort of announcement, but we really don't know what the Russian delegate have in mind when he talk about a BRICS country.
Yes, but what we may add is the fact that the international trade, in a sense, is a necessary premise for the introduction of a new international currency. So without a certain share of international trade, but also some specific specialization of the international trade related to BRICS and to other BRICS partners, we cannot have a stable new international currency. That is my opinion, but I suppose that is also Lucio. Okay, I will communicate to my student your email address. In this way, they may write you some other questions. Thank you very much for your lecture, and I conclude with good luck to my students for the examination that we have before the Christmas holiday. And I remember you that you may download the Luca Fantacci and Lucio Gobbi paper from the e-learning, and it is the main reading for this lecture. Thank you very much to everyone. Ciao Lucio, ci sentiamo.
Ciao.
Obviously, I am